Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whoever you are. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Friday, January the 10th, 2025, which makes this the news for Thursday, January the 9th, 2025, day 1051 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from a major European capital currently under siege. And I see Blue Ariel Silk is here. Hey, Blue Ariel Silk, how you doing? Hey, PH. Hey, Bobby. Bobby, are those fires near you? Are you in any danger? Hey, Mel. Hey, Big Red. Hey, Anthony. Brian Kornblau is here. Hey, Debbie. 22. I don't know what that means. I'm doing well, thanks. Feeling much better. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Chef Deb. Slime Shine. How's the ATACMs doing? The ATACMs are wrecking havoc. Wrecking havoc. Just another... Oh, I didn't even write that one down. Shoot. So what we've seen over the last couple weeks is a concerted effort to target command and control headquarters. We've seen it in Kursk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and now, and in Oriel. And we just had another one last night, early this morning, in Kursk again. And those strikes are being carried out mostly with ATACMs or with Storm Shadows. So Western weapons being used on Russian soil to absolutely decapitate the Russian command structure. Combined arms, Scott Stevens. You know, the terrain, the defensive positions make combined arms maneuvers, from as I understand it, as a layman looking at these things and listening to the people that understand them. Maneuver warfare in the Donbass is a problem. It's a problem. Terrain is a problem. Defensive fortifications are a problem. You can't move. There's too many landmines. There's too many tank traps. There's just too much defense. And even an Abrams isn't immune to artillery shells and tank mines, right? But the Abrams, which is at the head of the Kursk counteroffensive, literally rolling over North Korea. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's true. In the big offensive in Kursk, we are getting reports that some of the companies ran out of ammunition. It did not stop them. We saw video of a striker just running Russians and North Koreans down in a field. I mean, just literally running them down. And apparently that was not an isolated incident, because that entire company, as well as some others, ran out of ammunition in the counteroffensive. And so they just barreled forward in their armor. The enemy has no artillery. The enemy, right, these North Korean units are not supplied. They have no artillery to cover them. The drones weren't working because of the heavy electronic warfare and jamming that the Ukrainians were putting out. Anthony, I don't know. I haven't seen any video of challengers in Kursk, although it would be surprising to me if they weren't there, because didn't the 47th Mechanized Brigade get challengers? I think that they have they have half the challengers, if I'm not mistaken, and they're in Kursk. So I would think so. Hey, Tony Takiri, how you doing? The Abrams are there and proudly leading the counteroffensive, Bobby. Yep. PT is saying, yes, there are challengers in Kursk. Of course there are, right? Because now in Kursk, You're in a situation where you don't have defensive fortifications, where you have lots of wide open ground, fields to cover, no landmines, right? The mines that are being laid now to stop you. They weren't laid with thought ahead of time. And so they don't have this, they just don't have the same efficacy. It's just that simple. So Kursk is confusing. I want to be clear about this. There's mixed reports coming out of Kursk. It's not a slam dunk, guys. The counteroffensive on the northeast edge toward Bolshoi Soldatskoye is apparently going very well. However, on the northwest edge, we see a flattening of that front line. The Russians have pushed the Ukrainians back out of some of their positions on higher ground and have advanced hundreds of meters, not kilometers like we see in the east. It's estimated that this latest Ukrainian advance is about 8 kilometers, and they are fighting for Bolshoi Soldatskaya. Now, why are they fighting for this little town? Because that little town is where all the roads in the area come together. That's why. It's a logistics hub. It's a logistics hub. And if they can capture that hub, they will have houses to hide in. They will have places to take refuge, the Ukrainians, that is, and they will stop the flow of weapons and supplies through there, which will be hard, which will make it hard on the Russians for everything they want to try to do. So it appears that maybe Bolshoi Soldatskaya is the goal, and it would be to hamper Russian logistics in the region. Yes, that does seem to be the case. But again, it is confusing. I don't think that, I see some people who are saying that it's a war-ending move. I don't know who these people are. I mean, I'm an amateur, and I definitely don't think that that's the case. The Ukrainians are having a hard time of it. It's a tough fight. I mean, we make fun of the Russians a lot. Thank God they are incompetent. Otherwise, this country of 40 million could never have stood against them. It's just that simple. Hey, Howard, how you doing, pal? You got some music under your video too, huh? Yeah, I've had that happen. I've had that happen a lot lately. The last 24 hours have not been good in Ukraine. Hey, Chris Carter. The last 24 hours have not been good in Ukraine. The Russians are running glide bomb sorties again, and they are hitting, thanks, Martin, and they are hitting civilian targets. And we'll talk about the targets in a minute, but just in total over the last 24 hours, and this is a high number, 19 people were unalived by Russian glide bombs, and 130 were injured. These are all civilians. These are not military casualties. These are civilians. In their effort to murder grandmothers in their beds, which is what the Russians are best at, they sent 70 drones last night. They were all eliminated. 100% interception rate on the drones last night. Good job. Now, I want to talk, before we get to the Frontline update, I want to talk for a little bit about what I think is the extraordinarily dangerous and difficult language that we are hearing from Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his imperial ambitions, Greenland, Canada, Panama Canal, make it make sense. Well, I may be able to help with that. Greenland is rich in mineral resources. Climate change is making it easier to get to those mineral resources as the Greenland glaciers recede. It's also the location of our early warning missile system. If a silo opens, a silo door opens on a missile silo in Siberia, we know about it in Greenland first. We have a military base there. That's what they're watching all the time. We have missiles there. Should missiles come up over the North Pole headed toward New York and LA, that would be our first line of defense to try to intercept them. It occurs to me that Trump's play for Greenland is about economic security for America, so he claims, right? And you can understand that because he wants to rape the mineral wealth of the nation from the people who live there, just like they do here and want to do in the United States. And boy, wouldn't Putin love to see that early warning system shut down, the whole place mothballed. You know he would. You know he would. Now, how about the Panama Canal? What's Putin's interest in the Panama Canal? The Panama Canal won't let his fleet of fucking rust bucket shadow fleet tankers through. He wants to be able to come and go through the Panama Canal. And so what is Trump after next? The Panama Canal, and he's blaming the Chinese for it. Nonsense. Nonsense. This is more, what can I do for my buddy Vlad? The greatest enemy the world has ever known. What can I do to make his life easier? Disgusting. And the same goes for Canada. Canada represents a challenge to the Ruskies in the Arctic. The Russians have spent billions developing the Arctic, and it is all about the Northwest Passage. Do you remember? Think back to your 8th grade social studies class. Remember Henry Hudson, the lover of the Virgin Queen, Queen Elizabeth I. He tried to find, famously and failed, a Northwest Passage, that is, a way around North America to the Pacific Ocean. Well, the time is coming when that passage will open. Every year, the ice opens further. Every year, Henry Hudson's dream that he could sail from the Atlantic to the Pacific around Canada becomes more of a reality. And so Putin doesn't want to be challenged up there. So if America absorbed Canada, he would have his puppy, his little lapdog, Trump there to make sure that Russia gets a deal. Now, Howard, don't get ahead of me. Your spoilers, that's a spoiler alert, pal. It's a spoiler alert. What do all of these things have in common? Climate change. Climate change. Greenland becomes more attractive because the ice is melted. The Panama Canal is having trouble getting big ships through it because the lake it depends on for water in the locks is drying up because of climate change. The Northwest Passage opening up, climate change. How does Putin make all his money? Selling the dirty energy that drives climate change. No, this war is all about those of us who want to preserve and protect this planet for ourselves and our posterity, and those who want to rip it apart for their own unenlightened short-term self-interest. That's what this world is. That's what this war is about. Make no mistake. Now, the casualties of this war are the Ukrainians. That's another thing that is true. That is another thing that is true. Goddamn right I'm woke, Steve. It was President George Washington that warned us all in his speech leaving office to stay awake to the dangers to this democracy. You're goddamn right I'm woke. And anybody who's paying attention ought to be too. You say it like it's a bad thing. I am not asleep. I am not some sheep that's suckered by Donald Trump and his lies. It is amazing, isn't it? The guy gets elected and immediately he stops talking about all the things he was going to do for the little people. about bringing down the price of groceries. Just the way he used the word groceries, you know he just learned that word during this election because he's never once had to shop for groceries or deal with that kind of common, everyday clumsiness. Hey, Little Red Sunflower. Little Red Sunflower's here, everybody. Little Red Sunflower is the sponsor of tonight's live. Let's thank Little Red. Thank you so much, Little Red. We sure do appreciate it. We could not stay on the air without you. Now, tomorrow night's sponsor is one of our board of directors guys, Arn. And then after that, I have no sponsors for next week. So, guys, if anybody is interested in sponsoring Live at 5, the PayPal is in the description, or in the bio, rather. Now, on the subject of how dangerous Donald Trump and his minions are, let's look at the tweet that TJ sent out today. Donald Trump Jr., right? He sends out a tweet, and Fitz was very good helping me with some of this. I want to point that out. Fitz has 30 years fighting fires, right? And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but there are very few people I have more respect for than our first responders. And when this tweet came up, Fitz and I had a little discussion about it. Donald Trump Jr. today tweets, "This is why the LA Fire Department," oh, Pete, you're a firefighter too, right on. "This is why the LA Fire Department can't fight this fire. Not because they warned us that if we cut $17 million from their budget, it's going to be a problem. Not because of that, no. Because 3 years ago, they donated some used equipment to Ukraine, some surplus equipment to Ukraine. So if you're a Los Angelian, an Angelian? Why can't I think of that word? So if you're a citizen of Los Angeles, Angelino, thank you, PT, thank you. If you're an Angelino, thank you, Bobby. If you're an Angelino and you're thinking to yourself, oh, that's the reason that we're suffering is because of the Ukrainians, you're an idiot. If you think a couple of helmets and respirators donated 3 years ago is the cause of your misery, you're a sucker who deserves to be suckered. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that these people believe these things. So the LA tweet from Donald Trump Jr. is a great example of how these lying liars tell the lies they lie. That's how they do it. They twist the truth. Now Donald Trump is saying through his mouthpiece, Keith Kellogg, that he will end the war within 100 days of Max Power. Anybody with a name like Max Power is not worth my time. Would somebody show Max Power to the door, please? I'm Max Power. Oh, brother. Okay. So now Keith Kellogg, who's supposed to be the peace ambassador to Ukraine and Moscow, he says that Trump will get the war done in 100 days. This is on an interview on Fox News. And he says that he will end it with an equitable and fair peace. An equitable and fair peace. Just to say those words means you don't have any idea what's going on over here. To say that the peace must be equitable and fair says that there are grievances on both sides. This is nonsense. To say equitable and fair, you have to believe the lie that Russia was forced into this action because of NATO on its doorstep. This is nonsense of the worst sort. Nonsense of the worst sort. This war was unprovoked, illegal, and an affront to every principle that we as Americans are supposed to hold dear. And Donald Trump is looking for an equitable and fair solution. It's a betrayal of everything that America is supposed to stand for. He said the words, "I can understand Russian feelings." The poor, bereaved Russians. Somebody please show Contan Carite to the door, please, with a permanent ban. You can understand Russians' feelings, can you? Well, that's a slap in the face to every Ukrainian who's lost somebody in this conflict. Thank you, V. When I see this kind of language, this dangerous, perverse language that embraces an ahistorical view of history and the facts on the ground, as well as the tradition of democracy and democratic institutions, I weep for America. What have we become? What will we become under the leadership of this Russian asset? Because that's certainly what he is. Okay. Oh, that took a lot out of me. I guess I'm still a little bit, I'm not 100%, I guess. I had a little bug I was fighting off. Hang on a second. It's getting warm in here now. All right, let's take a look at the front line. Like I said, Kursk is a tough one, and the fog of war means that things are not clear. We don't really have a clear picture of what's going on there, other than, like all up and down the front line, though there's no movement, it doesn't mean there's no action. The violence on the front line is intense and ongoing. And just look at the daily losses of Russians. They're averaging about 1,500 men a day taken off the battlefield. Let's start up in Kursk. We've already talked about it a little bit, but just for quick review. On the northwest side of the salient, the Russians are making small progress, a couple hundred meters. While on the northeast side of the salient, the Ukrainians are pushing toward Bolshoi Soldotskaya, apparently in an effort to secure that logistical hub for themselves, cut off Russian logistics, and improve their defensive positions. That's 8 kilometers. So the Russians moved a few hundred meters on the west. The Ukrainians moved 8 kilometers on the east. It's an aggressive move. In Volchansk is really heating up. Now, look, I don't know if Ukraine has 20,000 fighters there on the border of Belgorod ready to plunge into Belgorod if they can dislodge the Volchansk salient in Ukraine. But they might. I'm dying to see Belgorod invaded. I really think that could end the war, because then you got 2 oblasts of the Russian Federation with foreign troops on them. That is not a good look for Herr Putin. No, it is not. And on that subject, in Volchansk, the Ukrainians have been bombing power on the other side of the border in Belgorod and knocking out the lights. It's hard to fight a war with no electricity. Now, I don't know that the two things are related, but they are happening at the same time. Kupiansk, the head of the city council reported today that Russian forces are just 2 kilometers from the town center. So Kupiansk is under pressure, as is Liman and Seversk, where there is heavy fighting. And the Russians are pounding the Ukrainian positions with glide bombs. Glide bombs, glide bombs, glide bombs. Every vehicle is being used in the daily assaults on Ukrainian positions. That is to say, we have reports of Russians coming in golf carts, electric scooters, bicycles, motorcycles, civilian cars. It almost makes you feel sorry for the Russians, because nobody should be in that situation where they are so certain they are going to die that they try to build a cope cage on a bicycle to keep themselves alive, because that's what's going on. I don't really feel sorry for them, but I kind of do. It's a nightmare situation. Nobody should be in this situation. It's insanity. Chasiv Yar appears deadlocked, despite all of the effort that the Russians keep putting in trying to dislodge the Ukrainians. They are having no luck. No luck at all. Toretsk, like Korotkove, has essentially fallen. It is now under Russian control. The Ukrainians might argue that point because there is still some fighting going on in the town, but Toretsk is essentially surrendered at this juncture. Now, the Ukrainians aren't going without a fight, that is for sure. I posted a video today of this crazy Ukrainian. Him and his guys are in a warehouse. The Russians come in the other side of the warehouse. So on the other side of the wall are the Russians. What does this guy do? He grabs a tank landmine, runs around the building, scoots in the door where the Russians are, tosses this thing, probably attached to a grenade, because a human being doesn't have the strength to set off a tank mine, right? So he's probably got it attached to a grenade, lobs it into the place. Now, I don't know what was stored in there, but whatever it was, it went up with a big fucking bang and took the Russians out that were in that other side of the warehouse. So the Ukrainians continue to demonstrate vim and verve as they prosecute this war that they never wanted any part of. Now that Korotkove has fallen, it appears that some of the troops there are being relocated into the Pokrovsk direction. So they're backfilling Pokrovsk reserves with active fighters from Korotkove. Now, I'm not sure what that means, but Pokrovsk is at a crawl. And they seem to be unable to make advances there. Looks like a manpower and equipment shortage. Now, whether or not a few guys from Kharkov are going to make a difference there, we'll see. In Kyiv, they're reporting the same kind of thing that we're seeing in Seversk. The Russians are attacking in small, dismounted assaults many times a day. Many times a day. And also in civilian cars, if they can find them, I guess. In Kherson City and in Zaporizhia, we saw glide bomb attacks. Remember I talked about those civilians, those 19 civilians that were unalived in the last 24 hours? This is where they came from. The glide bomb attack in Kherson hit a house and a kindergarten, because that's the real enemy in any war, are the kindergartners. And then in Zaporizhia, they dropped 2 Fab 500 glide bombs, killing 13, injuring 63. The bombs hit an apartment building, an industrial site, and a public tram right at morning rush hour. And that's where most of the casualties come from. 19 civilians unalived, 130 injured in those attacks in the last 24 hours. Ingalls Air Base, the Kristall Combine, the oil depot at Ingalls that provides fuel to the planes, to the bombers that do the runs over Ukraine. It is still burning. Last night, a second oil tank exploded. It now appears that 4 of those tanks are on fire. So they are having trouble. It is still burning, Nightshade. Yes, it is. A married couple. So if you guys remember back in December 13th, outside of a recruiting station in Dnipro, somebody planted an improvised electronic or explosive device. And I had reported at the time that the guy that planted it was quickly captured, or allegedly the guy who planted it was captured. The police and the SBU made 2 additional arrests in that terror attack from December. A male and female couple from Dnipro. The 30-year-old is in the army, but he is AWOL. He's a deserter. And his 25-year-old wife were desperate for money, so they agreed to build the bomb at the direction of the FSB. This is what they're being charged with. They built the improvised explosive device, turned it over to the guy who planted it, stood by and watched while it was detonated, and now are in custody facing charges of treason. As well they should. We saw today, oh, shoot. You know, if I don't write things down, I forget them. Let's come back to that. We'll wrap up with that thought. Bring it full circle. Lloyd Austin, Defense Secretary, opened the 25th Ramstein meeting today. That's the Ukrainian Defense Contact Group. That's all of NATO plus another 25 countries that support Ukraine. And Mr. Austin, General Austin, announced a $500 million package for Ukraine. And you guys know, normally when we get a big package for Ukraine like that, I'm all excited. And I am happy to go down the list and tell you about all the wonderful toys that the U.S. is sending our allies here in Ukraine. The only thing is, I can't bring myself to do it. I am so angry. I am so disappointed. I am so sad that Joe Biden, despite all of his talk, is leaving office and leaving $3.8 billion in weapons PDA on the table. He promised us that he would get everything out the door before he was done. And he has failed to do that. And not even like by a small amount, right? There was $6.1 billion left in the beginning of December when he started this thing. 6.1. And he's leaving 3.8. Really, really disappointing. Sickening, CyberDoc, it is. It is. He didn't try. He had 4 fucking years to lock up the copper-tone con man. And you're telling me that we have to wait until after the election to see the Jack Smith report? The American people should have seen that report before they had to go to the polls. Donald Trump should... Would somebody show JB to the door, please? It's just outrageous to me. It's just outrageous to me. Yeah, no, show JB to the door. He doesn't, if he's so ignorant that he has to ask that question, he has no right to be here. He doesn't deserve any of the shit that I am going to say. He doesn't deserve to hear it. He's not worth it. Send him away. The drone coalition. That's the UK and Latvia-led coalition to get drones to Ukraine. They've announced a delivery of 30,000 FPV drones. That's about $50 million in drones, and that money came from the UK, the Netherlands, Latvia, Sweden, and Denmark. Man, I'll tell you, the Baltics and the Scandinavian states are just right there. They really... Yes, he did, George. Don't even get me started on Merrick Garland's failures. So disappointing. The problem with Garland and with so many of these guys that I respect so much is that they're just too professional. You're dealing with a criminal. You're dealing with a piece of shit who's going to lie and cheat and betray and steal. And you treat him like he's entitled. It's disgusting. And really, it's time to stop being intimidated by these people. Let's see. Gas reserves in Transnistria are down to 24 days. The leader, so-called, of the Transnistria region said the words that Russian gas is humanitarian aid. These guys are absolutely loyal to the Kremlin, and they are refusing help from Moldova and waiting for Putin to come and save them. It's unbelievable. This is the president or prime minister, I'm not sure what his title is, but the guy who is supposedly the leader of Transnistria. Unbelievable. I think that taking Greenland, Canada, and the Panama Canal only serve the interests of Vladimir Putin. Every one of those strategic decisions of Donald Trump's has very little to do with us, and it has everything to do with what Vladimir Putin needs to build his empire. That's my opinion. And you can re-listen once this is posted to YouTube or to the Peter's Peeps public group on the Book of Faces, which Nightshade manages. Thank you, Nightshade. If you rewatch the beginning, I talk about it in some length at the beginning of this live. Okay, the Moldovan President Sandu and Zelensky are working together with their partners to solve the problem. Zelensky is great this way, man. Like, he's sending grain to Syria, making sure that the grain that the Russians are now withholding from the Syrians, nobody's going to go hungry. There was an envoy sent to Damascus. The guy is paying attention, and he's working close and hard with Maya Sandu to fix the problems in Transnistria. Now, no, you know what? I'm going to save that for tomorrow. And I'm going to go back to the beginning. I want to go back to the Trump thing and the dangerous language that he uses. Guys, listen. If he believes this lie that Russia was forced into attacking Ukraine, right, because they're so afraid of NATO, and NATO is so aggressive to them. If you really believe that lie and you think that this is a fair and equitable solution can be brought to this conflict, you have just betrayed the very principles of national sovereignty and borders. And we saw, Trump doesn't believe in anything. That's the problem with these guys. He literally doesn't believe in anything, just like Putin, right? Always lying, because they don't believe in anything. And all his hypocrisy, all his fear-mongering about the border and the illegals coming in, right? What did he say at that press conference in Mar-a-Lago last night? Wouldn't it be beautiful? Wouldn't it be something if America and Canada were together? And then, just think about it. If that invisible line on a map, that imaginary line that doesn't mean nothing, if it disappeared. I'm sorry, what? The invisible line on a map that doesn't mean nothing? You're talking about our sovereign national borders. They don't mean anything to you. Not if you're grabbing the land on the other side of them. This is the kind of dangerous, fascist, imperialistic bullshit that Donald Trump is going to bring to us the next 4 years. Canada, if the United States attacks you, I will personally leave you, well, once this war is over, I will leave Ukraine and I will come to Canada and try to help fight my own country because it's ridiculous. Manifest destiny, Bobby, exactly. Final thought here. Tiergan Simonian, Margarita Simonian's husband, has fallen into a coma and has been pronounced brain dead. Now, that may be, or, he may have, there's no way to know. But he's a heavy hitter, Tiergan. He and his wife are the ones that are paying for everybody to evacuate Kursk. The government's not paying. The government doesn't have the money. And so they got strong-armed into paying the evacuation costs for all those people. Look, I don't like to see anybody dead, especially not in a violent manner. But these people are the worst people in the world. Pugga Mahone, I don't have any idea what's going to happen in the New York trial tomorrow. I haven't been following it. I haven't read any analysis. One would hope that he's going to be sentenced, that he's going to be given jail time, and then we'll have to see him do the most typical Trumpity Trump thing he could possibly do and break all precedent for the office and pardon himself. Have you seen the updated story about the... Well, PT, I literally saw it 3 minutes before going live. And I jotted it down, but I don't want to just swing at that and miss. I want to hit that hard tomorrow. So that's going to be... Oh, good point, Dust Bunny. This is not a federal charge. Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. The judge has said no jail time, no probation. Well, then how is that a punishment? How is that any kind of punishment? The pilots have already had their Mirage training, Michael. So the pilots were in France for the last, I want to say a year. It must be about a year since they left. I think so. I think it's a year. And so the pilots and mechanics have already been trained. They completed their training. We're just waiting on the planes to get here. Yeah, Bobby, that's not going to happen. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but the short answer, well, I think Cannon might be out of it now because she moved to dismiss the whole thing, but then Jack Smith made a motion to deny her motion to a higher court. So I think she might be out of it. Benny Rodriguez, I went through all of this earlier. I'll do a recap real quick. Every single one of the strategic targets that Donald Trump has talked about, Canada, Mexico, and Greenland, all serve a much larger strategic purpose for Vladimir Putin than they do for the United States. In the case of Canada, it's the Canadian competition for the Arctic Circle in the Northwest Passage. In that case. He's a felon. Yeah, Dust Bunny, and that's what burns my ass, because that is not the way it's supposed to work in America. It's not supposed to work that way. Just because you have money doesn't mean you can buy and sell people. That's the bottom line. That's what Putin and Trump and MBS and people like him have in common. They want to be able to buy and sell people. They want people to be disposable commodities. ICC is taking over Jack Smith's cases. I mean, yeah, he used to be a prosecutor there, so somebody would have had to take over his cases when he left to come back to the United States as special counsel. But the United States is not a member of the ICC. We are not a signatory to the Rome Statute. So it's not possible that the ICC is taking over cases in America. That's not a thing. Exactly, Lisa. We've known all this since the Mueller report. Why did Merrick Garland take so fucking long? Well, GG, at the time, Canada was British, and they they didn't. They sailed up the Delaware River, right? The British sailed up the Delaware to D.C. to burn the White House. So I don't know. I don't know if they were British or Canadian or whatever. There would have been no distinction at the time. The ICC is not taking over any cases in the United States. That's not happening. Mike Johnson is talking about sanctioning the ICC. Don't mess with Canada. Geneva checklist. Okay. It is 9 to the top of the hour, so we have about 9 minutes left. Guys, just before we finish off with the last few questions, I want to thank, from the bottom of my heart, the incredible moderator staff that I have been blessed with here. Cheyenne, Vanetta, PTJ, and Travis. They are the best. And I want to thank Lars, who has the Discord server and the Alexievich archive. And I also want to thank Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, where these lives get reposted afterwards. So if you miss them and you want to catch up, something to listen to in the car or whatever, we are on the Book of Faces. Now, and today, if you missed the discussion of my analysis of Trump's Greenland, Canada, Panama Canal plays, I think they're worth listening to. I do. TYSM. Talk to you. Nope, I don't know that one, Dusty. I also want to thank the sponsor of tonight's live, Little Red Sunflower. Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate you. And I guess those are all the thank yous, huh? Thanks, Chef Deb. I have no sponsors for next week. So if anybody wants to sponsor a live, PayPal is in the description. If anybody hasn't joined the Patreon, at the very least, if you find this content interesting and you want to keep up with it, please consider joining the Patreon for free. You can get a free account. And every morning, oh, thank you so much. Thank you guys. Oh, Americans will, Cam. We know it's insanity. We totally know it's insanity. The PayPal is in the bio. PayPal is in the bio. It's not a link. You can't click it. You have to copy and paste it. Sorry. They only let you put one link. They only let you put one link in the bio. And I put the Patreon link. Because Patreon is everything. I mean, for $50, right, for the... maybe I should do that, actually. So you can get a year subscription for about $50, $5 a month, and a 10% discount on Patreon. So it's about $50. That's the same as the minimum for a live sponsorship is. So here's what I will do. If anybody joins the Patreon at the $5 level a month and pays for the subscription for the year, I will also give you a live sponsorship. So that it's not just a one and done. You're clued in for the next year. Oh my God, free healthcare, Bobby? Why doesn't Canada ask the United States if we want to join them and get healthcare paid for out of our taxes? I'm with you, Chef Dad. You know, PT, it would be nice to think that, but he is when he tells the army to go do something, they have to do it. That is my concern. That is really my concern. Now, I don't think that the United States military is going to open up on Panama or Greenland. I definitely do not think that. That could very well be a case for impeachment. Like if he orders the military to do some shit and they're like, no, they refuse that unlawful order, that could also be the basis for impeachment. Samso just checked. If you Americans paid taxes same as your healthcare, you would have cost level per capita. Dude, I mean, universal healthcare is so hard to do that only 32 of the 33 industrialized nations have managed it. Only Congress can send the infantry. Where did you go to school? Who the fuck is the commander-in-chief? Yeah, and it's a good move. So this notion of Zelensky's to keep the oligarchs out of politics is exactly the kind of thing we have to get back to in the United States. It was the entrance of dark money into American politics in the 90s, led by the neoliberal Clintonite Democrats who threw the working class overboard. That is one thing, boy, that Bernie Sanders gets right. The neoliberal Clintonites threw the working class overboard, and so, of course, they are angry and looking for a hero. Good night, Brian. That's the way it should be. Spirit of Ukraine, that's the way it should be. Where does your money come from? Show us. Oh, that's probably what he meant. Declarations of war come from Congress, yeah. I mean, this isn't even technically a war over here. Nobody has declared war here. The Ukrainians were invaded, but Russia never declared war. So just the declaration doesn't define the reality. Exactly, Eli. Special military operation. All right, kids, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning here in beautiful uptown Kyiv. I'm Peter Alexievich, and this has been the Live at 5. We don't know what's happening with TikTok. It could go away in just a few days. Hit me up on the Blue Sky, on Threads, on Facebook, on everything, anything. I'm out there. I'm on Instagram. And if this platform is taken away from us, there's always the Patreon. Again, if you join the Patreon for at least $5 a month and pay for the year up front, you will also get a live sponsorship. Is Mrs. Toad still here? Hey, Jerry-O. Good night, Bobby. Same as, well, it's spelled a little differently. But if you pretty much search for if you just Google Peter Alexievich, Dobrovice, if you just Google Peter Alexievich on Blue Sky or whatever, or just on Google, you should find all of my various social medias. Is James Boudreau here? Hey, James Boudreau, how you living? Ah, dude, you're on your way to the board of directors. I'll tell you, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you. Oh, God, I should. George, you're so right. I need to do that stupid link tree. I'm no good at paperwork. No good at paperwork. I'll talk to people all day, but don't make me do the write-up at the end of the day. See PayPal in bio, not Patreon. Dust Bunny says she sees PayPal in the bio, but not the Patreon. How could that be? So what I would do is I would download the Patreon app and then just search in the Patreon app for Pytor, Peter Alexievich. And I really am the only one. I was never an executive at Microsoft. Bobby, I never said I was an executive I was not an executive at Microsoft. It's nice that you think I might have been an executive. No, I was just a grunt, man. I served as the IT pro evangelist for the Mid-Atlantic region. Mostly Mid-Atlantic. I covered California for a while, too. And well, pal, first of all, When I was at Microsoft, that was 25 years ago to 15 years ago. So I was a much younger man. It's a Pennsylvania spelling. Dark Irish, that's exactly what it is. When I came over here, I mean, the Eastern Europeans are all like, why is your name spelled like this? This is not how we spell this name. And I had to explain that my family had been in America for 6 generations. And, my mother just got her grandfather's name wrong. That's all. It's misspelled. And I'm living with it forever. I'm still young. I don't feel young, Daryl. Tell my knees that I'm still young. I am not part Amish, as far as I know. Yeah, it happens. I once knew a guy named Sean Mara, which is about the most Irish name you could have. Turned out that when his grandfather emigrated, the family name was some long Polish name, and they just chopped it to Mara so that he sounded Irish because he was living in an Irish community. Good night, Sarah. All right, kids. That is it for me. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share. We'll see what happens with the Tickety Talk. And PT tomorrow, we're gonna do a deep dive into that thing in Afghanistan. June, good night. Good night, V. Good night, Alice. Thanks for sharing the live. Thanks, Samso. Nice to see you, pal. Oh, and thanks for that article on the Anchor. I appreciated that. Night, Norton. Good night, Becca. Good night, Eli. Good night, Pugga Mahone. Good night, PT. Good night, everybody. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Take care. Night, Hobo. Night, Big Stevie.